right, everybody, good people. We're back with another episode of Conversation Pops, and just got a few topics we're gonna cover this week. So, we're gonna jump right into it. Right now, it's me and Pops. How you doing tonight, Pops?
Oh, doing good, getting ready. Weather's broke. Looks like winter's finally over in this part of the world.
I wouldn't count those blessings right away. They was just talking about another winter storm on the edge of the Midwest that's coming up on Tuesday. Following up,
Yeah,
I
we're
don't know,
close enough.
getting there. That's for sure. Getting there. Man. So much going on in the world, in the world, in the world.
Yes, it
So
is.
let me ask you, man. We've been, I know, for years and decades. There's always been talk of the declinement of the U.S. dollar, and is the U.S. dollar ever going to fall out of favor? Is it ever going to become less than the standard? You know, there's always been speculation towards it. There's always been moves made in the world towards it. I remember before, what was his name? Gaddafi, shoot, Gaddafi. Before he was killed, I remember there was some real scare about you know how much influence he was going to have in the world of taking the world off of the U.S. dollar currency because of things he had going on in Africa. But I guess here in recent weeks, there's been some more serious moves made, and leads you to believe maybe that we might be even closer to this apocalyptic uh, prophecy.
Yeah, yeah, apocalyptic is right. Um, yeah, a lot of people they might not know or understand, but look at it like this: every country has its own form of currency. Okay, you got the dinar, the peso, the yen, the pound, the euro, and so forth and so on. Okay, now and the dollar, out of all them currencies, there is one currency that the Federal Reserve considers that it uses, and the same currency is also used to settle all debts when it comes to energy, oil, gas, natural gas, so forth and so on. So basically, what I'm saying is this: Saudi Arabia, for example. Saudi Arabia goes over here, the country, to Japan. Japan says, I need to buy 15 million barrels of oil. Saudi Arabia says, okay. Saudi Arabia says, give me $32 million, not yen, dollars. So then what does Japan have to do? Japan has to convert its money and buy things to come up with these $32 million because that's the only thing that Saudi Arabia will accept to pay for the oil because that's considered the currency for this. So therefore, that drives the American economy. Okay, when all of these debts are being settled in your currency, basically the interest is coming back to the United States. And what that also allows us to do, like we've been doing for the last 8 years strong, I'm gonna say since 2008, actually, when we started just really just printing money, it allows you to do that. All right, fast forward to today. You already have China went down to Russia, and China's been down other countries. Anyway, Saudi Arabia is considering on settling all their oil debts in China's currency. Okay, if Saudi Arabia does this, that means every world country that gets oil from Saudi Arabia will now have to have this currency to pay for it, which means the dollar has just went in the gutter overnight. It's useless. It has no value no longer. So you think inflation is high now? Just wait to see if this happens. And two things to listen to is that once the president's already been over there once, they laughed him off. Two, he's called them. They won't even pick up the phone and answer his phone calls. So This is supposed to go down within the next couple of weeks. So over the next couple of weeks, if Saudi Arabia and Yemen, Qatar, all of them oil countries decide to do this, and considering since we've gotten away from the gold standard, Nixon took us off of it. You put them both together, and all the money we've been printing, that instantly puts us in debt. That instantly takes this little inflation we're feeling now, and you talking about now 30% inflation. Where now them eggs that we've been complaining about that was 15, $16 are now $36. You know, that is the kind of impact that this move can happen. And if this does happen, we need to blame them that we put in office for allowing this to happen. This ain't no American's fault. No American played no part in this. This is our government. It's fucking us and gonna make us broke overnight. You talking about companies going out of business when they did have, you know, $15 million of operating expenses in their bank account. Now, because of this, because the reevaluation of what the dollar is worth, they now have $3 million. You know, things like that are happening. Individuals who got money in their bank accounts who got, 5,000, 10,000, 100,000, a few million. After the reevaluation, because of the inflation, you now got $150. You know,
So why are or do you feel that um that these stories are getting the right amount of publicity?
no, not at all. Um, it hasn't hardly got any publicity, zero. And there's no, and a lot of people can't even. It's one of them type of subjects that has no entertainment value. You know, it's factual and numbers, and
Well,
that bores people, and that doesn't make good TV.
let me say this because people have to blame them. We have to blame people. People have to blame ourselves as well. Um, because well, you know me from paying closer attention to some of the stuff that's been going on the last few years as far as federal politics go. You know, things do get reported on, you know, but people rarely react. If it ain't no, as you was getting ready to go into entertainment value, like people, the news will even if it's small stories from here and there, but the news will report on things just like we was talking about a few weeks ago about when Congress held all them hearings about aliens and UFOs and everything, and we still got Americans running around talking about, man, what if we ever found out there was other life? Our government already
Yeah,
told us.
that doesn't that
But
doesn't count. We want to
no, no, no,
we
no.
want to see it.
I mean, I understand that, but I'm just saying that what I'm saying the stories do get put out there. Um, why do you think people are not more up in arms about understanding what's about to occur with the American dollar, the United States dollar, and the consequences thereof?
Well, one is because you have certain kinds of agendas, okay? And one reason why it's not being out because one of the answers to fix it is one of the things that's not wanting to be done, which is pumping our own. If you're putting supplies into the market, you're making yourself in your own currency stronger because you're now putting more product into it. That's something we're not doing. Even though he has backed up on and signed a bill here a couple of weeks ago, opening up things a little bit. So, it then it's kind of funny when you say that, more oil isn't the answer, but then you tap into the reserves to put more oil into the system. So you can't have both, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Um,
but I'm not gonna hold out on tapping into reserves as being a good thing because he just did that last year, and we see what he did. He sold billions of it to China. What in the hell does giving China oil at the time that we paying these gas prices got to do with from our selling them from our reserves? Got to do with helping us, but. it is what it is. That's a different story. So
It
if it
does
does
because
take
you gotta understand one thing when it comes to China. Okay, um, the actual country itself is is useless. They have very few um, reserves of anything, very few minerals, ores. Their land mass doesn't really allow for mass production of food in many ways. I mean, a lot of their stuff is imported. Their energy is imported. A lot of their food is imported. A lot of their stuff is imported. But one thing they do have that the rest of the world doesn't have, you know what that is?
you're gonna try to
They
say,
got
man,
it, huh?
what? Go ahead.
They got a billion plus people that they can work the shit out of for nothing,
All right. But
and that has allowed them to get to where they're at.
I wonder, like, how much of what you just stated is myth opposed to uh, fact factual. You know what I'm saying? Because like for example, when you say they don't grow much and stuff, but yet we understand that majority of China's land is agriculture. Majority of their population are farmers. They have large cities and all that stuff and all the pollution and stuff that we talk about, but those are just those few large cities that we hear about. But majority of their population is still farms. They still out there
Yeah,
in the fields.
but they can't put out the quantities that's needed to feed them large cities and so forth and so on.
I mean,
They
yeah,
guess
I don't know much about China, so I would have to look into that more. That's why I say I wonder. You know what I'm saying? Because I just find it hard to believe that when you have majority of your population still living on in farming conditions for them not to be farming producing something. You know what I mean? But at the same time now to what extent they producing and this, that, and of course we know about their very large population. That's all we talked about. So I mean, yeah, I understand where you're coming from, you know what I'm saying, as far as the country might not be uh on a global scale. Look, nobody's gonna be as good as America when it comes to, and then of course, you can compare America, you can compare a place like the continent of Africa, you know what I'm saying, to the Americas. But I mean, a lot of stuff comes from America. So I'm
there
seeing
is there
more of.
this is
I'm
this
like, man,
this this
man,
country can produce anything. It has everything.
it's like and that's off topic real quick. I just want to make a quick statement though. That's one of the things that like really throws me off with Negroes and some people and Americans in general. It's like people can tell you about everything else everywhere else in the world, but they can't tell you about the place they were born and raised and where they live, where they from, the history of the place that they are from, that they grandmamas and they great grandmamas and granddaddies walked the land and lived and worked the land or whatever, and can't tell you nothing about the time periods of when they was living. And it's man, there's so many things the world would
Uh,
do without. But anyway, uh, on to the about the United States dollar. Now, I was just doing a quick um search because I just wanted to get us some context as far as what one of these news medias might be saying about the topic. Um, and I found a short one. I haven't watched this, so I don't know exactly if this is going to be 100% on point as far as on topic. But we can check this little 4 or 5 minute clip out real quick and just kind of put in context as far as what the media might be saying about uh, the fall of the dollar. And we'll do the live one. I know it's Fox. But there's other ones we could check out, but I'm going for the short.
See Steve Forbes. Okay, first to you, Steve. The president not commenting. He's now on a tour of 20 states talking jobs. More and more polls show the Biden White House is failing with voters. Voters don't like what he's doing. The majorities don't like it. The majority worried about inflation. The majority say he's dishonest. Steve, are they ready for this? China is now trying to replace the U.S. dollar with their currency in global trade. What do you think of that story, Steve?
Well, China's several years has made very clear, along with the Russians, they want to downgrade the dollar because they think that'll enhance their power around the world. And certainly the way we've treated the dollar over the year has gone in that direction. However, people are not going to trust the Chinese yuan. You may get these one-off deals like they're doing with the French, but China does not have real capital markets. China has capital controls. And so in terms of currency, people are going to prefer the dollar to the yuan. And so in that sense, I think we've got some time to get our house in order. And that 20-state tour you're talking about with Joe Biden, that shows how utterly out of touch he and his team are in terms of the economy, proclaiming that even though people are feeling that things are not going well, they say things are just fine, shows how utterly out of touch they are with reality. Talk about the ultimate bubble. That tour is it.
Yeah, to what Steve just said, Jason, just factually, talking to economists on Wall Street and in Washington, when they keep saying that they don't want to be named in the quote, but they keep saying this might be one of the worst presidencies we've seen in the modern era. This is one of the worst White Houses they've ever had to deal with. They collapsed the border, record inflation, 14% all in under this White House, and just more problems for the American people than they expected, Jason.
Yeah, the problem, though, is they think they're doing a great job. And after the 2022 election, Joe Biden said he was not going to change his trajectory in what he's doing. But I think the world, and certainly the United States, sees this.
Alright. Well, both of us is well aware of the inflation. That'll lead us into our next topic for real. But just based off of what we were talking about, like I said, there's talks about there's reporting being done on it, but I don't think people pay attention. Like,
No, because
until go ahead.
it's not exactly and like I said, it's not exactly a subject that grabs people's attention in general, you know, but it is extremely important because it affects everybody and everything that a person is trying to do, but it's not a headline biter, it's not like the Memphis
It ain't like
tragedy.
Will Smith just smacked Chris Rock.
Correct, correct. It ain't like that. That grabbed everybody's attention. Will Smith smacked Chris Rock on live TV. Let me say something to that because
Uh oh. Uh oh. What we got? Look, what we got? Look, I think we done with the fall of the dollar. Nah, go ahead. What you got?
one, my opinion, as far as I watched Chris Rock's rebuttal. I do want to see his when it aired the first time. It was live and unedited. I do need to find that somewhere, but I did watch it on Netflix, and it still makes me wonder to some magnitude how much it was staged. Um, when he got up and done that, and then he accepted his reward there afterwards. Nobody had no remorse. There was no out. There was nothing. It was everything like everything was over, like it was a skit in the show. You know what I'm saying? And then you look at the aftermath. All of them got their publicity. Chris Rock, okay, yeah, he was hosting the Oscars, but he could have used a little bump. I mean, do comedians have a right to speak about someone foully? I mean,
Yes.
no.
What you
They
mean, foul?
well,
Let me ask you a question. So I'll lead into this conversation with you. What do you mean by talk about someone foul?
well, okay. Yes, of course you have a right to have your show and say what you want to say. Okay? the part that we've um, we've let go, we've allowed it to leave. The aspect of a man being chivalrous over his woman and taking up for her respect. That used to be a big thing. Hell, 100 years ago, you could kill a motherfucker over the respect of your wife. You understand what I'm saying?
No,
So, well, that's the way it used to be.
no. What I'm saying is, and you can't take. You have to keep it in context. All right, because trying to justify this specific argument about do comedians have the right to say something foul about people, and then trying to overall generalize and then compare it to how extreme people in general would take insults from general public or general peoples, excluding, because that statement excludes going to a theater show to see a comedian who is an actor or whatever talking, getting laughs, and somebody being offended.
I agree.
Get offended. You do not have we want to talk about rights. You do not have the right to approach that stage in no manner. Period. You are interruption to the show. You are interruption to everything about that whole night that everybody came to pay money for because you got your feelings hurt. You do not have the right to approach that stage.
That is correct.
That's some comedians even allow you. They kind of thrive off of you going ahead and what's the word they use, heckling them from you in the audience and you're saying things during the show that's kind of supposed to be messing with the comedian because you don't like something about the comedian, what he said or whatever, so you heckle. Some comedians invite that, but under no circumstances do anyone have the right to approach that stage.
Not at all. You are correct. I was just talking about the far as the reason why I think it even happened. You know, the actual actions of it. Yeah, of course, he has the right to have his show. You're paying at a show. You're not even on the street. You're at a show, so of course, you don't have no right to approach that stage. But um, Will Smith has a he's a weird one. I mean, I know we've all seen the stories on the internet, of the you
Little
know Illuminati's and everything, but I don't know. It's just everything is all over the place. I did watch that show. Chris Rock is a little bit more conservative thinker than I thought he was in his comedy. You know, uh, but yeah, I just think it's an overall depiction of what's going on. And like I said, you take the dollar, you take our morality we have at this point. What is that African country that's outright rejecting everything we do in Kenya, isn't it? You know, and you put it all together and you say we need in this country some real leadership that we haven't had in decades. You know, uh, I think that's one reason why people gravitated towards Donald Trump is because he was off the cuff. Uh, you didn't feel like you was talking to somebody who's been doing this all their life. The things he would say, like for example, the
hold on,
situation
hold on. I'm sorry. Let me before you start talking about Donald Trump real quick. Uganda.
Uganda, yeah, Uganda, and a lot of the things that he would bring up is a lot of things that we've all talked about having a beer with our homeboys. Like why do we pay so much to NATO? Why is Germany buying oil from Russia, but then again, we're giving Germany billions of dollars to protect them? That is kind of stupid, And
Well,
and
that's that is the biggest thing about the person Donald Trump. throughout all this, they've turned him into such a caricature where it's all about the personality of him and everything like that, which is everybody's supposed to hate the personality of him and the white supremacist in him and whatnot. And under no circumstances is anybody supposed to pay attention to what he is saying over these years. Under no circumstances is anybody supposed to really pay attention to his speeches and listen to the shit that he's done said over these years. Period. You can listen to a soundbite about Charleston, which was completely taken out of context again, because in that same speech he was denouncing white supremacy as they was asking him to do. But they love the one clip and they take it and run. Same thing they did with him during the debate when he said stand down. You know what I'm saying? Stand back, stand down, whatever how he put it. You know what I'm saying? But you can when you watch the whole thing in context, you can see clearly he was trying to make the people happy and say what it is that they wanted him to say. But at the same time, he was still trying to point out this is still about the corruption of never mind. Because he was steady trying to talk about the corruptness of life, but nobody cared. Even though this I would argue the things that we see going on in America today, this is the results of having a corrupt president. Now, they told us this is everything that they told us. This is that Trump was going to do to America is actually what this presidency has done, even up to lock up their political foes. Even though they said for sure that's what Trump was going to do. You know what I'm saying? That's I think that's why they really didn't go after Hillary because they were afraid that they were going to put it as Trump was trying to persecute his enemies or whatever, his political enemies, whatever. And I think that's why she really got away, didn't really suffer no consequences during those 4 years because I think they were too scared to pull that trigger, even though there was more than enough to talk about with her specifically. I'm not talking about everybody. I'm just with her specifically, there was more than enough to talk about, especially if you lead me to believe over these last 2 years that the stuff that they done talked about with Trump is criminal. Then I know we should have got more out of that than having the head of the FBI come out. I mean, the head of AG come out and say, "Well, yeah, there's plenty of evidence, but no prosecutor's really gonna, you know, considering the political ramifications. Ain't no prosecutor really gonna prosecute." That's how they come out with her, but with Trump, it's man, gloves off. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off that long. I just wanted to say I completely agree, and that is the big thing when it comes to Trump is it's not about who he is and all this other rhetoric around him. People need to really go back and listen to these speeches. And hell, at this point, you ain't even got to go back. Listen to the shit he's saying now, but actually listen to him instead of the sound bites. And I guarantee you'll have a different perspective.
This is true.
It's not that he's the savior and he's all great and everything he says is good. No, but this man is full of freaking real truths. Like he points out real shit that comes out as oh he's hating, but he be pointing out real stuff, real time stuff that's going on that they really there's quite a few people that don't want you listening to him. That's for damn sure.